Breakfast is the most important meal of the day. That famous rule might just be the greatest marketing scam in history. Did you grab only a coffee this morning and feel terribly guilty? Stop blaming yourself. You are not lazy. Today, the body detective officially takes this case. The victims are millions of people being guilt-tripped every single morning. Is skipping your morning meal actually destroying your health? Or did someone just want to sell you more food? The first clue isn't hidden in a science lab. It is buried in a dusty magazine ad from the last century. Growing up, you were probably terrified by warnings that skipping breakfast would instantly wreck your metabolism and make you gain weight. Whatever warning you grew up with, the result is always anxiety. It feels like you are committing a terrible crime against your own body. As a result, you probably forced down a slice of toast on your way to work, even though your stomach was not hungry at all. The real thief here did not steal your health. It stole your right to listen to your body's natural hunger cues. So who planted this strict rule in our heads? Let's open up the historical case files to find out. Back in 1944, a major American food company launched a massive advertising campaign. They paid hundreds of nutritionists to print in newspapers that eating in the morning was the ultimate key to health. The real goal wasn't medical wellness. The goal was to sell millions of boxes of ready-to-eat cereal. The trick worked flawlessly. It became deeply ingrained in our minds and turned into a medical truth passed down for generations. But let's toss that vintage ad aside. The body detective only speaks in biological data. Welcome to the internal crime scene at dawn. While you sleep, this machine never actually powers down. It is like a factory running a night shift. And the main fuel storage for this factory is your liver. The liver holds a massive reserve of sugar, quietly pumping it into your blood to feed your heart and brain while you snore. When you wake up at 7 in the morning, this reserve is not empty yet. Your fuel tank is not at zero. Even better, your body has an incredibly sophisticated biological alarm system. We call it cortisol. Cortisol levels surge in the early morning. It orders the release of energy from fat and the liver so you can jump out of bed. This survival mechanism goes back to the Stone Age. Our ancestors had to be alert to hunt. They didn't wake up to a ready-made buffet. Forcing food down the moment you open your eyes, right when natural energy is peaking, creates a massive internal collision. You eat a giant bowl of sugary cereal or a pastry, your blood sugar shoots up like a rocket, then it crashes violently back to Earth just 2 hours later. That is the real culprit making you yawn at 10 in the morning. Detectives log skipping breakfast doesn't drain your battery. Sometimes eating the wrong thing is what actually steals your energy. But wait, one of my clients yells. What about the rumor that skipping ruins your metabolism? It is another famous myth. Your body is like a furnace, and you must add wood in the morning to keep the fire burning all day. Honestly, science has not completely settled this debate yet. We have to admit that right up front. There is zero medical proof that skipping your morning meal permanently damages your metabolic system. In fact, thousands of studies on intermittent fasting show that extending your fast teaches your body to burn stored fat. Without incoming food, the cells trigger a self-cleaning mechanism. It is a massive cellular garbage disposal event. But here is where the case flips to a new chapter. If skipping is so great, why do so many people end up in the hospital? Remember when I said this case is only half true? The other half of the truth is much more brutal. Skipping breakfast itself is innocent. The real villain is the uncontrollable overcompensation you do right after. You starve yourself all morning. By 12 noon, your stomach roars and your self-control completely collapses. You eat a massive compensatory meal. Your pancreas has to scream and pump insulin to put out the blood sugar fire. This massive barrage of blood sugar punches at lunch, destroys your body 10 times faster than just eating smaller meals. What about the gallstone myth? Fasting does not magically spawn stones out of thin air. But when you don't eat, bile sits stagnant and thickens inside your gallbladder for hours on end. Combine that with a greasy, heavy makeup lunch, and you have just perfected the ultimate recipe for manufacturing gallstones. And do not forget people with sensitive stomachs. Acid is still produced out of pure habit with nothing to digest. Science is still heavily debating whether skipping meals directly creates fresh ulcers. But if your lining is already scratched, dropping acid into an empty stomach is exactly like pouring salt on an open wound. Or imagine if you are a construction worker needing to lift heavy materials starting early in the morning. For you, skipping a morning meal is not detoxing your body, it is absolute physical suicide. We are finally starting to see the real boundary lines of this case. The culprit making you exhausted isn't whether or not you chew food at 7 in the morning. It lies in the terrible habits you use to cover up hunger, like throwing down black coffee on an empty stomach. When you do that, you are hitting the emergency fire alarm for your nervous system. What happens next? Let's turn the page. Let's recall cortisol, that natural biological alarm clock we just talked about a moment ago. Early in the morning, it is already operating at maximum capacity to wake up your entire muscular system. Pouring strong black coffee into that tightly wound system is exactly like throwing gasoline on a raging fire. Your adrenal glands panic. They squeeze out every last drop of energy, creating a completely fake, euphoric high. By early afternoon, that energy balloon pops. You crash hard, and you blame it all on skipping breakfast. This false testimony is so common that even the scientific community was completely fooled for a very long time. A massive observational study once published that people who eat morning meals are less obese and live longer. The numbers were quite impressive, but in medical investigation, there is an iron rule we must never forget. Coincidence does not create causation. Detectives call this the trap of the healthy lifestyle bias. People who leisurely eat in the morning usually get enough sleep, have time to exercise, and experience less stress. Meanwhile, the skipping group is often rushed workers staying up late for deadlines, smoking while driving. It is the absolute chaos of their lives, eroding their health, not the missing bowl of cereal. When clinical trials finally filtered out all those distracting factors, the magic of breakfast suddenly evaporated. There was no significant weight difference between eaters and skippers, as long as the total daily calories remained the same. What about muscle loss? A bodybuilder client walks into the investigation room, slamming hands on the desk. It is a very reasonable fear. The body needs protein to build muscle. If none comes in, won't it eat itself? But evolution is much smarter than we think. Let's call in the next suspect, human growth hormone. When you fast past 16 hours, this hormone skyrockets. Its duty is to form an absolute shield to protect muscle tissue. Your body locks the muscle tissue up tight and redirects its attention to burning stored fat for alternative energy. However, the body detective must pause for a moment here. Honestly, there is a point where the science isn't completely certain. Researchers are still fiercely debating whether prolonged fasting is absolutely safe for female hormonal balances. A woman's natural cycle is incredibly sensitive to signals of food scarcity. Skipping morning meals daily can make the brain falsely believe you are in a famine, potentially disrupting the cycle. Here the case shifts from finding out what's wrong to pinpointing the right target. Which group do you belong to? The real thief was never the fasting itself. The thief is forcing every single body into the exact same mold. There are victims who are absolutely not allowed to play this fasting game. Pregnant women, diabetics, or those under 18. For a growing child's body, the brain aggressively consumes a massive amount of blood sugar just to learn. Children's liver reserves are significantly smaller than adults. They genuinely run completely out of fuel by morning. Forcing them to go to school fasting is like pushing them to run a brutal marathon on a totally empty tank. But what if you are a healthy 30-year-old office worker who simply sits in a chair for 10 hours a day? This is where the detective uncovers the deepest layer of truth: circadian rhythm. The problem isn't that you fast. The problem is that you are eating completely out of phase with the sun's natural operation. The human body is programmed to digest best when there is light. The pancreas is most sensitive to insulin during the day. If you skip the morning meal but compensate with a heavy, spicy hot pot at 11 o'clock at night, congratulations, you have committed a crime much worse than fasting. you are forcing the factory to run after power is cut. Eating late at night aggressively spikes blood sugar right when your body is supposed to be cleaning its cells. Studies indicate that eating the exact same amount of food, but earlier in the day, dramatically reduces diabetes risks. So if you belong to the group that physically cannot swallow anything at 7 in the morning, it is totally fine. You can absolutely push your first meal down to 10 o'clock or even 12 noon. On one ironclad condition: do not turn your lunch into a reckless, vengeful feast of compensation. This case has ultimately exposed a very brutal truth about how our bodies actually function. The body does not care whether you call it breakfast, brunch, or lunch. The body only counts the total nutrients coming in and exactly how that blood sugar impacts your blood vessels. Forcing a person who isn't hungry to swallow food is a form of biological abuse. But starving yourself until you faint only to fill your stomach with junk food is an equally terrible crime. Listening to your body is not some empty cliché slogan. It is the most accurate investigative method out there. Audience of the Body Detective, you are not trapped between having to eat or having to starve. You have the absolute right to design a mold that perfectly fits your very own biological engine. So, what exactly should we start doing tomorrow morning when the alarm rings? The detective has prepared an action protocol at the very end of this file. It's time for the prescription. Tomorrow morning, when you open your eyes, our first rule is do not sprint straight to the kitchen. Let's run a short test. Give your body exactly 60 minutes to boot up its system naturally. During that 1 hour, ask yourself, am I actually hungry, or is my mouth just bored out of habit? Fine. If your stomach is violently rumbling and your hands are shaking, congratulations, your body is genuinely signaling for fuel. At that point, eat. Absolutely do not starve yourself to force your body into some trendy internet fasting routine. But what if you feel empty but have zero appetite? Pour yourself a large glass of warm water. Warm water gently washes the digestive system without triggering a massive insulin panic button. What about your beloved cup of black coffee? I highly recommend you push it back just a bit. Wait about 90 minutes after waking up when your natural morning cortisol spike has cooled down. The second rule in our protocol: the structure of your first meal, no matter what time you eat it. Do not throw naked sugar and refined carbs into an empty stomach. It will catch on fire. You need a heavy anchor to keep your blood sugar stable. That anchor is called protein. Boiled eggs, a handful of almonds, or a cup of thick Greek yogurt. They create a strong protective shield, helping food digest slowly and dripping energy steadily over time. Carbs are fine, but you must wrap them tightly in fiber. A slice of whole wheat bread is a much safer choice. Finally, and this is a life or death rule, control your lunch at all costs. If you choose to skip morning food, your brain will plot to trick you at noon. It will scream for greasy fast food. Block that sinister plot completely by preparing your healthy lunch the night before. Never let a ravenous hunger make the decisions when you are holding a restaurant menu. When you prepare in advance, your rational mind is holding the steering wheel, not the insulin monster. And what if one day you suddenly wake up absolutely ravenous at 7 in the morning? Don't be dogmatic. Just cook some eggs or eat a warm bowl of soup. Your body is not a rigid piece of machinery. Investigating health is not about finding one absolute rule that everyone must obey unconditionally. It is about picking up pieces of scientific truth and fitting them perfectly into your very own lifestyle puzzle. The detective only brings evidence to the table. The jury that decides the fate of this body is you. We have come a long way to erase the fear and confusion that has been planted over decades. There is absolutely no crime in letting your stomach rest for an extra few hours. Your body is a perfect survival machine, sharpened by 2 million years of raw evolution. It is not so fragile that it will shut down entirely just because you missed a mealtime by a bit. If someone tries to sell you fear in exchange for you buying their food products, just remember that Torn magazine ad from 1944 at the beginning of this case file. Science constantly moves forward, but rumors will always try to grow roots and hold us back. Do not let guilt control your dining plate for even one more single day. The body speaks in a very quiet voice, but it never, ever tells a lie. The detective's mission is to clear away all the noise so you can finally hear that whisper. If you are exhausted, sleep earlier. Don't try to cure it by forcing down a heavy meal at dawn. If your stomach burns, check how you drink coffee. Don't just blindly blame it on fasting. Every single symptom has a real culprit hiding behind the scenes pulling the strings. Start treating your own health with the sharp mindset of a careful investigator. However, do not forget, every investigation has its legal boundaries, especially when we are talking about the most complex biological machine in the entire universe. The detective only provides a perspective gathered from massive files of population data. We do not know your personal medical history or the old wounds hidden inside you. Therefore, closing this file procedure always comes with an absolutely essential reminder. This video is general information, not medical advice. Please talk to your doctor for a diagnosis and treatment that fit your situation. Never use an internet video as an excuse to ignore the real warnings your body is desperately sending. Now let's return to the very first question that opened this case file. Does skipping breakfast actually exhaust you and destroy your body? The answer is no. The real thief has finally been caught. The body detective officially closing the case.